Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I'm your host, Alecia Jacobson.
Hello, my badasses. How are you today? I am doing really well, actually. I feel like I'm in a space where things are sort of like trucking along and there isn't a whole lot of like resistance and, things like that. It's like a nice, gentle flow of life right now. So I'm going to keep this energy going because this is the kind of energy I like. Just like a slow go with the flow, nothing crazy going on. I today want to share with you it's called Must Love Coffee, which makes no sense to you, but it will. I just got out of my women's coaching circle, and in the circle, one of the women were talking about a job transition. And this is something that I work with women on all the time, is either completely switching careers and, doing things differently, or job transitions, thinking about quitting a job, starting all these types of things around career, because there's a lot of things to think about when you think about switching careers. And generally when they're, having this thought, it's because they're stressed, overwhelmed, work is taking up too much of their time when they're not at work. And this shows up like feeling stressed the night before, bringing work home with you, things like that, working more hours than you should. And just the kind of joy column isn't really getting filled. So she brought this up. And I also had last week, somebody sent me an email about dating, which I'm not qualified to talk to you about dating. So you keep those questions to yourself. I'm not your person. However, I do have some information on how to choose a partner, which is very similar to how to choose a job, which is what prompted me to make this podcast today on Must Love Coffee. And why is it called Must Love Coffee? Whenever I think about this topic, it's always Must Love Coffee. Because when I started even thinking about dating again way back in the day after my divorce, I knew that I needed to do things differently, because the way I chose the first go around was not at all with any sort of like consideration. It was like, oh, you and I are both in the same place at the same time. We should probably get married. Like, it was convenience. It was what I thought I should be doing. If you listen to the episode I did with Becky Birkin, we talked about kind of falling into marriage just because it seemed like the next step that we were supposed to be taking and not really putting a lot of thought and consideration into it. I believe it is different now these days rather than us old folk back then. But I have the same kind of method that I did back then as I work with people now when we're looking at jobs. And, this woman was talking about dating. And when I was making this list, it was called Must Love Coffee, because coffee is an experience for me. It's something I really enjoy. It's something that I wanted to sit around on a Sunday morning and be with my partner and have coffee. And it was just the idea of coffee. It has a certain energy for me. There's a certain vibe that goes with that. So that's why the title of my dating list was Must Love Coffee. And there was a bunch of different things. I wish I would have kept this list. I did not. I didn't realize I was going to be marrying this chap that I dated. But on the list was things like traveling and, habits that this person had, all the things that you would look for in a person. So I made this list, and there was probably 20 different things, and they were non-negotiable things that I was like, okay, if I'm going to even consider being in the presence of another person, here are the things that are non-negotiable and the things I'm not willing to, have in my life when it comes to a partner. And your list will be different than my list. But the main thing is that you make this list and you do it in such a way that you have all the important factors on there and you stick to it. And you don't get into it and get blinded and decide like, no, that's okay. It'll be fine. It seems fine. And how this translates to, when I do career coaching with people is like, what are the things that are non-negotiable? Maybe the fact that you want to be remote is not negotiable. That's not something you're willing to bend on. Maybe there's a certain amount of traveling that you do want to do. Maybe traveling is really exciting to you, and that's something that is important, that is going to be a part of your job, that you are going to different sites. Or maybe I was working with somebody recently and she really liked the education part of her job. She wanted to be hands-on with people, kind of teaching them and educating them and having that component of their work. So whatever it is, when you're thinking about transitioning to a new job, making sure that you write down a very detailed list and then you stick to it. So in the coaching circle, when I was talking to one of the members and she was saying how, she had her places and she was going to start doing some research and calling and things like this. And then she goes, well, and there's 2 more, but it's an hour commute. And, I've done it before. I really don't want to do it. No, that is your hard stop. So if you've already decided, here's how long, if you're going to be commuting, here is how long I'm willing to commute, then that's something that you stick to. Because there is a reason that you have decided that here are my boundaries, here are my expectations, here are the things. And if you start bending on them, eventually it's going to be something that pisses you off later and makes you uncomfortable and unhappy. So when you are making these big life decisions, getting really clear on the things that you will accept. Maybe there is a part that's like, okay, this would be great. It's not, it doesn't necessarily have to be this. But if you go into these things sort of letting them, whatever it is, dictate the outline of it, or whatever, the job title or the spouse is, you're just going to fall into something blindly. And most likely you're going to probably get kind of what you have now, because we are creatures of habit and we go where we're comfortable. So you will likely agree to something that you don't want to agree to and find yourself in a very similar situation if you are not thinking clearly, if you have not planned out exactly what you want and gotten really clear the expectations you have for the job, the relationship, whatever it is that you're doing. So that's all I have for you today. It is like super short and sweet. So if you're out there in the dating world, although again, I'm not the person to talk to, just know like what your expectations are, because you don't want to fall into a well-worn pattern of things that have not worked in the past. And what I can speak to is the career stuff. That get really clear, like make a detailed list of the things that you want out of a new career. What kind of work-life balance do you want? What about stress? Like consider that. Like what is the stress level of the job and what are you willing to take on? What is the energy like of the place where you're working? All sorts of things that you need to think about. Is it going to be flexible with you? Do you have things where you want to take vacations or want to be able to go to your kids' programs? Do you need that sort of flexibility? So do not just cave because you are, just kind of wanting to fill a void and just make a lateral move or jump ship. Like really get clear on the things that you want and go out and look for those things. So don't be adding shit that doesn't make sense to your list if it's like, no, this doesn't work. So then why even take the energy? Why even put that out there to the universe of, yeah, I'm going to add this. It's a maybe, maybe I can, make the commute. It might be fine. No, don't even put it on your list. Like stay focused on what you want and have your expectations, like raise that bar, ask for what you need and go out there and get what you need and don't settle for any bullshit. All right. That's all I got. Have a lovely day. All right, my beautiful and loyal listeners, I am here asking you for a favor. The Spirit of a Badass podcast has been nominated for Best of Madison. There are 6 podcasts in this category and only 3 will make it on to Best of. So you don't get to be a badass by yourself. We get here by the support of other people in our community. And I'm asking you, my beautiful community, to take about 2 minutes of your time, follow the link in the show notes, and go ahead and cast your vote for the spirit of a badass. If you are driving or something like that, go ahead and set an alarm for when you'll be done, or a time in the future that you know you will be able to take a few minutes and cast your vote. Thank you, thank you, thank you, my wonderful, wonderful listeners.
Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.